Welcome to the wide, wonderful world of camera framing. Each moment in a film is carefully crafted in advance by the director or cinematographer. A camera shot is a particular framing of a subject or subjects in relation to the camera. Camera framing is how the director composes the subjects within a shot, taking into account mood, emotion, balance, and character. In each shot, a director must decide in advance how to frame a subject to best convey the message of that moment. Each camera shot includes a combination of 4 different parameters. They are distance from the subject, height of the camera, angle of the camera, and the number of subjects in the shot and their placement within it. The director combines these elements to create a series of shots or a shot list to capture while on set. These shots will be edited together later on to compose a scene. Actors will need to adjust their performances slightly depending on the particular camera framing that is being used. So let's take a look at the 4 parameters of camera shots.
This is Claire. She'll be our subject as we take a look at the first parameter, distance. How far the camera is from the subject. We'll start off with what is called an extreme long or extreme wide shot. It's called long because the camera's a long distance away from the subject, and it's called wide because there's a lot of wide open space beyond the subject. We use these kind of shots as establishing shots to establish the location of the scene that's coming up. When the subject, like Claire, does appear in the frame, they are really small, they're not doing a lot of acting, you won't hear their voice, and you're pretty much just seeing them doing some simple action like walking, standing, sitting, or driving. You might also see this shot anytime a character is being spied on from a distance, like we are looking at Claire through these binoculars now. Moving it a little closer, this is called a long shot or a wide shot. The purpose of this shot is still concerned with showing the surroundings of the character. You'll notice that Claire is still framed full body and she is taking up about half the size of the screen from top to bottom. Here the character will give a little more specific action, maybe dropping something, picking something up. As we move inside, Claire is now framed in a full shot. A full shot frames the subject from head to toe with a little room to breathe. You might use this shot when looking at a character entering a room. Or you might use this with multiple characters in a line, like in a police lineup. If Claire were seated, we could still do a full shot just by moving the camera in a little closer. Now we push into a medium full shot. The bottom of the frame is just below the character's knees, and it still shows most of their body. Here the actor's actually going to be acting a little bit more, but they're still going to be using their body a lot. Claire has moved into her dining room, and now we're getting a little closer to her, so we're framing her in a cowboy shot. The cowboy shot is framed at the mid-thigh to the top of the head. This camera framing got its name from old westerns where you had to show the cowboy and show their guns on their hips at the same time. It's very popular in superhero movies as well. It frames the character face on, close enough to see details in their face and also see the action of their body. Moving it a little closer, we see Claire in a medium shot. A medium shot is framed from the waist up. An actor in a medium shot is going to be more focused in delivering their performance, using only their upper body to gesture, and will not be moving their lower body at all. This framing is a medium close. It's framed from the chest up. This is probably the most common shot for dialogue sections of a film. Then we move into the close-up. Shot from the neck up, the subject's face takes up almost all of the frame. Here, Claire will deliver a very focused and subtle performance, concentrating only on movement in her face and not with her body at all. Finally, we push into an extreme close-up. This is where the entire frame is taken up by one feature of the subject's face, like their eyes or their mouth. Here the actor's performance will be extremely subtle, and they must be very careful not to shift their weight and move out of frame. The audience sees every little detail in an extreme close-up. Let's review the distances. Extreme close-up, close-up, medium close-up, medium, cowboy, medium full, full, long wide, extreme long wide. Meet Dustin. Dustin will be our subject as we examine the second parameter of camera framing, height. So Dustin's a bit of a thrill seeker, and he's on the edge of this cliff. He's getting ready to base jump off of it. So here we see Dustin, and we get a good glimpse of the landscape behind him. This is called a high level shot. We've positioned the camera so that the center of the frame is a few feet above Dustin's head. Now because the camera is level and not tilted at an angle, we have to pull the camera back several feet in order to capture Dustin's body in the frame. Notice how his body's at the bottom of the frame. When we lower the camera to the level of Dustin's eyes, we can push it in a lot closer and still keep Dustin's head in the frame. This is called an eye level shot. Now if we lower the camera to Dustin's shoulders, we have to pull it back a little further, and now Dustin's head is in the top part of the frame and his shoulders are in the center. This is called a shoulder level shot. And this is used more commonly in film than the eye level shot because it makes actors look a little bit taller in the frame. Dropping the camera further to Dustin's hip level creates a hip level shot. And then we can go further down to Dustin's knee level, and finally to his foot level. Notice how each time we lower the camera, we have to pull it back further to keep Dustin in the frame. And notice how Dustin has moved from the bottom of the frame to the top of the frame. At any level, we can bring the camera closer to the subject. For instance, at the foot level, if we brought the camera closer to Dustin, we would see just his legs and feet. You could use a shot like this to show a character walking into a room before revealing who they are. Don't go away, Dustin's about to jump off that cliff. See what happens when we return. In just a moment, Dustin is going to base jump off the cliff. How exciting! We'll use his jump to illustrate the third parameter of camera shots, camera angles. Dustin jumps off the cliff. Whee, how exhilarating! Dustin's falling toward the ground, and the camera frames him in a bird's eye shot, or an overhead shot. Here the camera is placed directly above Dustin, and it's angled 90 degrees downward to see him from directly above. If you've ever watched a Busby Berkeley musical, you'll notice he frequently uses the bird's eye view to frame his synchronized dance routines. Uh-oh, Dustin suddenly realized he didn't put on his parachute, and now he's starting to panic. We frame him now from a worm's eye view, which is the opposite of a bird's eye view. Now the camera is placed below the subject and is aimed 90 degrees upward. As death looms, Dustin starts to have flashbacks to the past few days. He remembers just yesterday when he was at a football game and he felt powerful and strong. Now, a director would frame this shot with a low angle shot, or an up shot. This is where the camera is placed below the eye line of the subject and angled up toward the subject's face. It's used to make a character feel powerful, dominating, or aggressive. And then Dustin remembers that later he lost the football game and he felt defeated. So we shoot him from a high angle, the camera above his eye line aimed downward. This makes the character feel defeated, diminished, small. Then Dustin remembers just a few minutes ago when he was climbing up the cliff, how he felt like he escaped death even then. Here we frame Dustin using an aerial shot. An aerial shot is usually attached to a drone or shot from a helicopter. It's usually shot at some distance. It serves to show more of the surroundings of the subject, in this case, the cliff. We move in a little closer to get a perspective from his point of view. This is a POV shot. We are looking through Dustin's eyes. We see what Dustin sees, in this case his weakening hands. The camera is placed just above Dustin's head and angled up in the direction that Dustin would be looking. Phew! Dustin managed to pull himself to safety, just in time to plummet to his death. Dustin hits the ground with a thump. Poor soul, never had a chance. This shot is framed using a Dutch angle. A Dutch angle is where the camera is rolled to the right or the left, forcing the horizon line to turn on a diagonal. But wait, he stirs! Dustin's alive! Damaged, yes, but still alive. The Dutch angle is a dramatic angle. A director might use the Dutch angle to make the character feel disoriented, spaced out, or in peril. Let's give Dustin a break while he returns to his Jeep to change his soiled underwear. The fourth parameter of camera framing is the number of subjects in the shot and how they are composed on the screen. So far we've only seen one subject in each of our shots. These are called one-shots. If we have 2 characters, it's called a 2-shot. 3 characters is a 3-shot. 4 or more characters is a group shot, and many characters is a crowd shot. But there are a variety of ways that we can frame 2 or more characters in a shot. Meet Toronto and Montreal. They will be our subjects as we look at a variety of ways 2 people can be framed in a 2-shot. Toronto is on his lunch break from the construction site and the two men are walking down an alley. They both face the camera front on side by side. This is a balanced shot showing the characters at equal footing. We can place both characters' profile facing the same direction on the same side of the screen, and the reverse of that. This could be used for an exchange of dialogue where the director wants both characters to be on the same side of the issue. By flipping back and forth between these two angles, we can get each character's perspective. Now when the characters stop walking and turn toward each other, we can frame this section of dialogue using an over-the-shoulder shot. An over-the-shoulder shot frames the shoulder and head of one character in the foreground, but the focus is on the character that's in the background. This is used by directors to examine both sides of a conversation, both when an actor is speaking or reacting to the other actor. Here we have a front-facing shot where the characters are profiled facing each other. This shows that they're on opposite sides of the frame. Perhaps now the characters are unable to reconcile with each other, and therefore they're on opposite sides of the screen. You can frame a character in other artistic ways, such as this one, where one character is facing forward and the other is facing profile. You might use this shot to show two characters who seem like one. Let's bring Blake, a new actor, into a conversation with Claire. In this over-the-shoulder shot, both characters seem to have the same level of dominance in the scene. But what if one of the characters were seated? Here Claire is seated, and we lower the camera to an over-the-hip shot. An over-the-hip shot is like an over-the-shoulder shot, but it's over the hip. This over-the-hip shot is used when you want to show characters on equal footing, but one of them is standing and one is seated. Now if we wanted to give Blake a little more dominance in this shot, we would raise the camera to his head level and do an over-the-head shot, aiming down on Claire. And if we wanted to frame Claire as the dominant character in a moment, we would go from an over-the-knee shot on Blake. This makes Claire look more looming and dangerous. We can do an over-the-foot shot as well. Here we're at Blake's foot level as a zombie approaches him. Over-the-foot shots are used when you have to frame a character that is on the ground in relation to someone who is standing. When we have three or more characters in a shot, there's always a bit of triangulation. Three shots are great when you need to save time on set, when you don't have time to do a setup for every single individual one shot. In this manner, characters can kind of talk over each other and you can see their reactions at the same time the characters are speaking the lines. Three shots can also be shot from a variety of different angles. Here we have a low-angle shot capturing Claire in the foreground. Anything more than three characters is considered a group shot, and again we can use a variety of different distances, heights, and camera angles in order to encapsulate a group of people. In an upcoming episode, we will look at camera movements, how directors move from one camera framing to another. If you don't want to miss that, make sure you hit subscribe.
Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.